Hey, everybody, welcome back. Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady, with my co-host, JC.
Wendy, it is so good to be back. Thanks for having me on our show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming on our show. I literally couldn't do it without you, especially the technology part and the humor, as you can tell.
Well, I'm going to tell you, even humor aside, every time that I step into this studio and begin recording with you, it's more than just a friendly connection. It truly is a masterful educational experience. Believe it or not, it really is. And even if you're not so well adept or in tune to, what the topic is, it really, depending on what it is, could wind up opening your eyes to something brand new. And Wendy, I know nothing about what we're about to talk today. So school me a little bit. Let's get into it.
You're not the only one. A lot of people know nothing about due diligence and post-acquisition integration strategies for mergers and acquisitions. Ooh, it was a mouthful just reading that, but I myself have been through mergers and acquisitions, and it is a lot. It is complicated. It is overwhelming, and you can lose employees during it, and usually your key employees. So we are here today to ask a gazillion questions. Okay, maybe not a gazillion, to our special guest, Alyssa Harley. How you doing, Alyssa?
Hi, I'm doing really great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. So you have some experience with mergers and acquisitions, huh?
I do, both domestically and globally.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's amazing. You didn't pull your hair out at all during any of that, right?
There was a lot of coffee and wine consumed during the process, but the hair stayed okay.
That's awesome. JC had a question.
Yeah, Alyssa, I got to ask you right off the bat now, are we talking about just like B2B mergers and acquisitions or influence of PEOs along the way as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in my experience, we're typically taking someone off of a PEO and bringing them onto our existing structure. So when we're going domestic, that's a little bit easier. So we'll be able to oftentimes realize cost savings. So when we're going through the M&A process, I think that oftentimes you're looking for cost saving structure within the organization, right? We're buying a business and we're looking to optimize their revenue, what they're doing, and bring them into the business. And one of the ways that we can do that is by eliminating their PEO, bringing them onto our benefits, whether it be payroll, insurances, and being able to cut some administrative costs in that way.
And for the listeners that don't know what a PEO is, it's a professional employer organization. And to, I don't know, sum it up, they basically are co-employer that handles the payroll and the benefits. And then the employer, who's still responsible for everything and still legally responsible for every single thing, can focus on their business. That sound about right?
Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting coming at it from the HR perspective, because for a lot of CEOs, they're looking to a PEO because they don't have someone internally that knows those things. They don't have someone that can manage the benefits, manage the payroll. So in those cases, that's the value add that those organizations can bring to a CEO. When they join an organization that has a built out HR structure, the value of the PEO can oftentimes disappear pretty quickly.
Right. And plus they're pretty expensive too.
There used to be, maybe if you're in construction. So one of the other benefits is if you're in a high risk category, they can, from a benefits perspective, potentially lump you in with a peer group who has less risk, like a white collar type of organization, to bring down your benefit rate. But what we're seeing nowadays with insurance rates, that oftentimes doesn't even pan out to be a good case either.
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, so you're merging with a company or you're acquiring a company. They have a PEO, you have HR. You obviously want to save some money, get rid of that PEO, and pile more work on the HR
That's right.
and payroll department, right?
Job security, but go on.
Anybody else? What else do you see though, like post mergers and acquisition that are the problems that HR or other departments have to deal with?
Yeah, great question. So what I have seen in my experience is oftentimes the organization is acquiring another product, or either to expand their services, to reach a new market, right? There's a business case behind why they're going through that M&A effort. And I would say 5 to 10 years ago, HR was one of the last people brought into the conversation.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, we're going to go through this, big announcement tomorrow. Can you draft new employment letters for these people that we're going to retain? What I've seen shift in the last few years is people, organizations starting to understand the value that we as HR leaders can bring to the M&A process very early on. And it starts with due diligence. So ensuring what risks do we have? Because not only are we assuming their business, we're assuming any liability that they have. So you want to get in and understand, do we have any risk in terms of ongoing cases, any, right now, FLSA classifications, right? Before we start bringing on all these people, have we mitigated all of the risk that, we're about to assume from an HR perspective? And the other piece of it is the culture piece. And yes, potentially you're buying that organization because of the widget that they sell. But oftentimes, to a point that you made, you need to retain those people in order to keep the business running, which is why you're buying it in the first place. And so getting your hands on whether it be recent engagement surveys, any information that you can use to identify who key stakeholders are, is really going to be critical in the long-term success of that integration, because you may have a handful of people who are really critical to the function of that product, or they hold key relationships with customers, and they love working for a CEO founder, and they love working for a really small company. And if you go into your day one, which is, for those that are learning about M&A, we call day one the day in which you announce to the organization that they've been acquired, and you start having meetings, letting people know about the new company, our culture, they're getting paperwork. If you've missed that in the due diligence process, and you think that you're leading with value of, hey, we're a really large and stable company, and it's so exciting to be here, that message may land really flat, and then you've risked you've introduced a risk of losing really key people because you didn't do your diligence on the front end to understand why those people enjoyed working at that company.
Absolutely fascinating, especially when we start to think about that day one. And are you retaining all the employees? Are they new employees? So much paperwork that you have to do if they're all brand new. It's crazy. Hey, look, during the PEO involved mergers, 68% of HR professionals report increased focus on compliance to avoid penalties related to worker misclassification and tax reporting. And also approximately 73% of employees experiencing a benefits overhaul during M&A cite uncertainty about their benefits as a huge number one concern, underscoring the importance of clear communication and seamless benefit administration. Alyssa, your thoughts on those stats?
Well, you already heard me mention the FLSA. It's clearly top of mind for people.
Yep.
And so, acquiring that risk is something that, you have to look at. So from the business perspective, I fully support that statistic. And then from the employee perspective, you're going to, you think about it from their perspective. You go to bed Wednesday night, you get an email from your CEO that says, hey, guess what? We've been acquired. And I've been on the receiving end of this email too, right? So the first thought that goes through your mind is, am I going to have a job tomorrow? It's a difficult economy. There's, folks are on edge as it is. So then you go into that meeting and it's all change. You're going to have, by the time the day is over, you have a new employer, you probably have a new boss, depending on, what's happening with the organization, potentially a large cohort of whom you've worked with for a really long time may have been told they don't have a job. So it's a very emotional and difficult day for those, individuals impacted and exciting, right? There, can certainly be a lot of people that are excited about the opportunity that it presents. And you might have a new job title and your benefits are changing. And so on top of all of that stability, we also know, at least for US employees, that medical benefits are one of the significant decision, factors that people are using when they're choosing their employer or even choosing to remain with their employer. They may have a chronic illness, they may have an ongoing issue, a preferred provider. It's taking an already stressful situation and then you're adding something like benefits on top of it and a change there. And it's just amping that up even more.
Yeah, I love it. And, just talking about benefits too, and the fact that you mentioned people you use benefits to make a decision on, or am I staying with this job? Am I accepting this job offer? But they also say they stay for their managers. So if they are getting a new boss, I hate the word boss, but they are getting a new boss, then they may say, no, I'm out of here. Yeah, you got good benefits, but I don't know this new person, or I know this person and I don't want to work for them. An interesting study here by McKinsey and Company found that companies with successful HR integrations are 1.5 times more likely to achieve their M&A objectives. And so you need an expert like you in there to say, okay, get HR involved early. Are the employees with this company that we're acquiring or merging with because of the people? And if we're removing the people, the management, we're going to lose the employees, right? It's like, so boo. I've been through a few mergers and acquisitions, much smaller scale than you have. And, it was small companies merging with other small companies until it became a big company so big that all the small companies that first did the mergers and the acquisitions together was like, I don't even want to be part of this big company anymore. And most people left, including me. I'm like, I didn't want to be part of this big company with all these, weird rules and there's no personality. It's like, I'm out of here. Forget it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've talked about that too of, so there's a few things you can do. Some are very strategic. And if you've done your due diligence and identified those key stakeholders because they either are key to a relationship, key to retaining talent, you may put a bonus in front of that person and say, hey, I need you here for 6 months. And at 6 months, you can decide whether or not you're on board or not. But if you stick around, there's going to be there's going to be a bonus for you at the end of that time. So you may have to, lock it in that way because you've identified that person is that key to the success of the integration. And ideally, in that 6 months, you get the opportunity to learn more about that person, to introduce them to the organization and get them on board and excited to be there. At the same time, you as the acquiring organization have to be truthful and honest about how you run your business and who you are. And if you are the very process driven, very metrics driven organization, and that's not going to change, then the acquired employees deserve the opportunity to know that. And I think it's unfair to say to them, hey, nothing's going to change, because we know that that's not true.
Yeah.
Be candid about your culture and how you operate and what they can expect as part of the new organization. And, that may not be a fit for them. And I actually think that's okay too, because people do their best work when they're in an organization that aligns with how they operate, their values, their culture. And if that's going to be a mismatch, even if that person you've tagged as someone who you think on paper maybe has a lot of potential, they're not going to be working at that level anyway, because it's not a match for the environment in which they'll thrive.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. Well, thank you so much for all this information on mergers and acquisitions and due diligence post acquisition integration. It's so important. We the lawyers and the legal team and the finance team, they're all worried about ahead of time, and then they forget about after. Like, okay, we bought this company or we merged with this company because of, their bottom line and our bottom line. And then we just screwed it up because we forgot about the people. So folks, remember the people. Speaking of people, hopefully you're not firing people during mergers and acquisitions, but you might be. You might be saying, all right, we need to cut some heads here, or we might need to, if there's 2 finance departments, we only need 1. But JC has some stats or stories, I should say, on they got fired for what?
That's right, Wendy Sellers, the HR lady, and Alyssa. So here we go. Quote, I was fired for playing solitaire on my 15-minute break when I was working as a receptionist. The doctor who owned the clinic was dumb enough to put that as a reason in my termination letter. I collected unemployment after he tried to appeal it. They explained in great detail how stupid of a reason this was for termination. Back to you.
Sometimes we just got to put in there some dumb stuff to say, don't end up on our show, okay? Alyssa Harley, congratulations, first of all, on your new role. And how can our listeners connect with you?
Thank you so much. I'd love to connect with your listeners. I am on LinkedIn. It's Alyssa Harley. I snagged that one early. So though the name is common, if you go to LinkedIn and if it's backslash Alyssa Harley, you'll find me. And I am, you'll know you're at the right one. I'm at Advantive.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hey, everybody. We hope this information has been helpful. Thanks for joining us and take care.